just to an earther, one word. So that's fun. In addition, it's also worth noting, or worth stating the obvious, radical leftists and anti-Trump individuals aren't allowed on our site. We've built a virtual wall. And only those in alignment with the president's America First ideals are welcome. This alone should make your time on our site all the more productive. Don Jr., we hope this new chapter in your life will go off without a hitch. And Trump.dating is here to help you do just that. Beautiful, isn't it? You know, it's Trump.dating and Donald Trump Jr. You know, it's my favorite pairing since Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin's ass. Congratulations, I guess, is something that we're doing for people, by the way, who've won a fake election. Jesus Christ. Like you want to talk about like can you imagine if any president, I'm not even gonna go, can you imagine if Obama, I mean any president at all, had congratulated let's just say Robert Mugabe of Zimbabwe. He technically had elections, and he technically won them by like some stupid margin of like 96%. Saw a few pictures online right after the Russian quote-unquote election of folks who looked very suspiciously the same, wearing the same. You know, it's funny how Russia has statistically, 1 in 3 people has a twin who happens to be upset with their identical twin brother or sister, so they go and vote at different polling places. Pictures of obviously the same person voting in 2 different polling places on the same day, wearing the same outfit. Obviously, different places. So we're congratulating dictators now. So that's cool. I don't even know, man. Like the thing that I just keep on thinking about is that we're going to look back on this little era of history, and the textbooks are going to be fucking fascinating. Because like what president in the most recent history has been on trial effectively for treason? Like, I mean, he hasn't had treason charges yet. He hasn't, that's not what the Mueller investigation is about yet. But, like, that's essentially what things are pointing to. So that there was an obstruction of justice charge, basically, that's in the pipeline. That the Trump campaign, if not Trump himself, colluded with the Russians to help influence the United States election. Like, all of this stuff happened. And at some point, like, kids are going to be studying this. I don't know. It's just absolutely fascinating. Fascinating to me. The other thing that's fascinating about this time, as I'm recording this right now, March for Our Lives is happening all over the world. And I think it's really beautiful, to be perfectly honest with you, that children are, and by children I mean these are people who are like 10 years younger than me at their oldest. They're affecting real change, and whether or not we see substantial changes to how guns are dealt with in the United States or not, the conversation is moving, and the old guard of the NRA, they aren't going to keep on winning, and this is the movement of kids who have been affected by the NRA's continued lobbying, more so than any other. Like, these are the kids who had to do active shooter drills in their high school classes. These are kids who, of course, have been shot at themselves. This is going to be, I honestly do. Like, I don't think it's going to be. Is it going to be the same level as Australia, where they had like gun buyback programs, and you have very low gun ownership in Australia? No, it's not going to be like that. But it's going to be different. You're gonna have less and less situation where you have to be pro-gun in certain states in order to win. You're going to have less and less situations where you need that NRA endorsement to win as a Republican. You're going to have less and less situations where the Second Amendment is talked about at all. And I think that, like, over time, that organization is going to lose. And I welcome it because they are just terrible, terrible human beings, as far as I'm concerned. So after this, we're going to talk about Daniel Bryan in the WWE, his return, and I'm sure there'll be other things on the go. I can't believe this website. I love it so much. I wish that I could sign up for it all the way, but like there are some stops. So. And like the other thing is that, like, eventually I think in order to see my matches, I'm probably gonna have to pay them. It's free to register, but you gotta pay them eventually. So, oh well. All right, so before we get into the wacky world of professional wrestling for this week, I am going to just very quickly give you a little bit of programming notes, just so you know what's coming up on the next couple of weeks. Of course, this week, 26th, normal episode. Next week and the week after are going to be a little bit banky. I'm hoping to have a guest maybe next week, but it very well might be that it's sort of a bank type episode, certainly talking about the news, less in terms of chatting about current events, just simply because next couple of weeks at school are looking fairly busy for me. Basically, we're staring down the barrel of a couple of big exams at school, so that's going to be busy. It's going to be taking up a lot of my attention over the next couple of weeks. So it'll probably be just when I can sit down and record. And I'm going to try and make that as timeless as possible, so that we don't run into a situation like I did with the open of last week's show, because that was uncomfortable. And then the following week, which is Monday the 9th, which is the Monday immediately following WrestleMania 34. The show will be sort of in the can probably this week, actually, for that episode. So that'll be, I guess, episode number 24, I guess. Anyhow, I've got a couple of interviews. I've got one that's already recorded with Kyle Racky over at Proposify, and I'm also going to be interviewing a buddy of mine, Mitch, over in the UK, Mitch Summers Hall. He's a fan of Leicester City Football Club, and we're going to talk about that season, his memories of the season where Leicester City defied the odds and won the Premier League title. We're also going to talk about sort of how he feels the team is going forward after that amazing year, and what he thinks that the sort of long-term ramifications of that will be for the club. So I've got that interview lined up this week. I've already got the interview with Kyle in the bag. So both of those interviews rather, will be up on the episode on April the 9th. And then from there, we're back into the normal swing of things. I'm sure that the following Monday, which I guess will be the 16th, if I'm doing my math right. That's 9 plus 7. That's the math that they taught me in school. So that'll be back to normal. I'm sure I'll have some thoughts on WrestleMania and Takeover, and of course my trip out of town. I'm going out of town that weekend. That's why we're doing a bank episode that week, because I'm not going to have the normal time that I would to sit down and record between school and trips out of town. So I'm looking forward to that. Looking forward to getting out of town. I'm going to PEI. Looking forward to being in PEI. I haven't been to Charlottetown in probably like 8 or 9 years actually, and looking forward. I'm able to sort of dictate what I want to do a little bit more as an adult, I guess. I mean, that's sort of the way that it goes. But there's some gonna go see some museums and shit. Like, I can't wait. Absolutely thrilled. So that's what's going on the show over the next little while. Like I said, we're gonna get into the wacky world of professional wrestling here. So as I noted on the bonus episode last week, Daniel Bryan, man, that coffee kicked in fast. I feel alive. I feel jittery. I feel a little bit sick to my stomach. Not actually. I had some food too, so we're doing good. So Daniel Bryan, after just over 2 years, is back, is allowed to compete once again. Read a Newsweek article this week, actually, that Daniel Bryan. So the story, if you don't know, is that Daniel Bryan, professional wrestler for his entire adult life, he started sort of competing on the regular on the independent circuit around the world when he was 18. He's 36 now, I believe. So he's been doing this for a while, Yeah, so a couple of years ago, after he sustained a number of different injuries throughout the course of his career, he wrestled a really high impact style, and after sustaining a number of injuries, he of course was given impact testing by the WWE's doctors, giving under the care of his own doctors as well, and it was determined that based on some somewhat troubling findings in terms of his post-concussion symptoms, that he was probably not fit to compete anymore, that he wasn't going to be cleared to compete. So at that point in time, Daniel Bryan very tearfully and very sadly had to retire because he was and continues to be at the height of his popularity. The last time WWE was in New Orleans for WrestleMania, Daniel Bryan, which was WrestleMania 30, so it was just 4 years ago, Daniel Bryan won the World Heavyweight Championship, won the big belt. I mean, it was 2 belts at that point in time, but that's besides the point. And was sort of on top of the world. It was the culmination of a year long or longer story, with him being sort of the plucky underdog and the sort of man against the authority. I talked a little bit about this on John Patronizes You, the teaser episode I threw onto the main feed. You can listen to that if you haven't already. So old D-Bry, he's back. He's back. Like I said, I was reading the Newsweek article that one of the physicians, because it was an army of physicians, because of course he very publicly had to step back, and of course it was mainstream news at the time. It was around the time that the WWE was actually getting some real mainstream coverage, like on the regular on ESPN. So Daniel Bryan actually did one of his first post-retirement interviews with Jonathan Coachman on ESPN, and that's where he sort of talked about, like, I had doctors say, like, this is for your health, it's for your long-term well-being, because of course WWE is a little bit gun-shy, as is anybody in any sort of combat situation. WWE has been sued by ex-employees for negligence in terms of how they treat their independent contractors, because these guys actually aren't employees of the WWE. The wrestlers, they're actually technically independent contractors. So it's a whole mess in terms of how they actually treat the wrestlers. But after Chris Benoit, which if you recognize the name but don't know who he is, he's the gentleman, former, I was going to say former Canadian, but former world champion from Edmonton, who his post-concussion CTE type injuries basically degenerated his mind to the point where he was something like an 80-year-old dementia patient with the body of a 40 21-year-old man at the peak of his physical capabilities, and he ended up killing his wife, his young son, and then